A putrid stink snarled at Masai as soon as he entered the Vico district of Ijikos. Garbage, litter, and human excrement lay nestled on the sides of the streets, like patches of desert flowers. Several homeless people sat between the filth, although they didn't glance up at Masai as he passed. Blank, hopeless expressions covered their faces, and they often reeked of unwashed flesh. In the other districts, many buildings would have had decorations or some unique qualities that made them stand out from their neighbors. This was not the case in the Vico district. All of the buildings were austere and common. After all, it was said that the poorest of the poor lived here, and who had the money to waste on such frivolousness when getting food was a challenge? The crowd who walked the streets had glum faces, and their shoulders hung a little lower, as if weighed down by the world itself. They didn't look at Masai either, nor did they look at one another. Each person was an island all to themselves. The Vico district did have one thing, however, that the other districts didn't have. Red banners hung from various buildings, and this was the only striking thing within sight. A scantily clad man wearing the tiniest shirt Masai had ever seen, and a pair of tight-fitting pants, stood at the corner of a building. When Masai approached, the man coaxed him and invited him to have some real fun, but Masai hurried past him. When he moved, Masai kept a hand on his money pouch, and he gripped his staff with firmness. Masai had never been to the district before, although he had heard about it from eavesdropping on his brother's conversations. Hikol and Joti often whispered about the crime that lay concealed within the Vico district, like an unnoticed cancer beneath the skin. At several points, Masai stopped and asked for directions to the Sandrat Whore. The people's reactions spanned from confused to annoyed and even a little apprehensive. Some people pointed him in the right directions, others declined to help entirely. Eventually, he found his way to the Sandrat Whore Tavern. The Sandrat Whore Tavern was only a one-story building above ground, and it had mud brick walls and a thatched roof. The sign for the establishment had a scantily clad man painted on the front of it. Echoes of loud, wild music came from the tavern's entryway. All of the windows were bricked up. A single chimney jutted from the top of the thatched roof. Just as Masai started to move closer to the entrance, a familiar voice snagged his attention.
We'll all be a sweaty camel's ballsack. Tell me you're not the one.
Masai whirled around and saw Joyu leaned up against a building. In one hand, he held his own staff, and in the other, his pipe. A stream of hot pink smoke wafted up from the bowl.
The one? What are you talking about?
Joyu emptied the pipe's contents on the ground and squished it with his sandal.
We received a message from the goddess herself that her chosen needed our help to retrieve a stolen artifact. You've been the only one in our order who's shown up, so I'm going to assume that you're the chosen. What are you looking for?
Joyu placed his pipe in his side pouch.
A pair of bandits somehow broke into the tomb of an old cardinal and stole an ankh buried with him.
Masai gazed over at the tavern.
They're probably in there.
Joyu stepped up beside him and eyeballed the place as well.
Do we know who we're here for?
One guy has a scraggly goatee and a patch over his right eye. The other was missing teeth and had a large nose.
Joyu turned a curious eye on him.
You know them by sight? Did you witness the burglary?
Masai shook his head, but hesitated. After a moment, he locked eyes with Joyu.
The goddess sent me an image of their faces.
So how did a fresh-faced newbie like you manage to gain so much favor with Lady Death? Not even 10-year veterans have earned the honor of being called her chosen.
Does it really matter at this point? Will knowing or not knowing determine whether or not you'll help me?
The goddess issued a command, and I live to serve her. I don't understand where you fit into the grand scheme of things.
Masai shrugged.
And I do? I'm in the same boat as you. I'm not sure what's going on, but I'm here to serve Anakanti until I get my final breath.
They stared at one another before another man in a cloak came up the alleyway. Joyu waved to him.
Are you all in position?
The man nodded.
We have a squad near the back entrance and one at the back of this alley. I'll lead the one by the entrance. Yours is back this way.
All right, I'll be there in a few minutes.
The other Zur disappeared down the alley, and Masai stepped out into the open.
I guess you're my backup if things go badly, huh?
Yeah. The goddess said she would send us a signal when we were to enter. I guess you know what that means, right?
No, but I guess we'll find out.
Masai walked across the street toward the entrance. He stared back over his shoulder, but Joyu had already left. A great swelling of pressure crushed his diaphragm a little, which made his breathing come in weird gasps. Anxious needles stabbed into his skin, especially on his arms. Wild static danced in his stomach. Masai dipped into his mana well, imagined it being concentrated on his new tattoo, and then he sent his thoughts to Lady Death.
Am I supposed to send a signal?
Immediately, Anakanti sent him a thought back.
By all that is holy, it really works. Yes, send me a thought that you are in trouble and I will send word to the Zur. Be careful.
Masai took another deep breath and then laughed a little. Based on Anakanti's response, it was not a matter of if, but it was an absolute certain that trouble would brew for him. Masai stepped up to the front doorway, but he was stopped by a large man who stood in front of the entryway. The man was a half a foot taller than Masai, and easily 100 pounds heavier. Scruffy, patchy hair poked out of the man's face, along his cheeks, but not his chin. When the man sneered at Masai, he revealed his flaxen-colored, decayed teeth.
Hey, where do you think you're going, you little creep? This is an invitation-only establishment.
I need to go inside. Let me pass.
The man drew a long dagger from his belt sheath.
Go away before I slit you open.
Masai's nerves twitched wildly as he reviewed the length of the blade. He licked his lips and then fed his energy into his staff. When he stepped back ever so slightly, the man let out a bemused chuckle.
That's what I thought.
Masai thrust his staff forward and buried the Ankh headpiece into the thug's nose. Bones crackled and his flesh sank in. The man staggered backwards. His eyes squinted tiny tears.
How?
Masai's staff struck him in the throat. What would have been a cry came out as a wheeze. Tears streamed down the man's face as the skin of his face and neck rotted away. Flesh flaked off and the man shuddered. He fell back against the wall and pawed at his blackening skin. Though he still held the dagger, the man simply peered up at Masai with absolute horror.
You should have let me in.
The guard's eyeballs shriveled up, and then he became quite still. Masai moved over the corpse and started down the stairwell leading toward a hidden basement door. The door at the bottom of the stairs was an old wooden door with a bright, polished iron ring for a door handle. Masai pushed the door open and went inside. Loud, lively music played in a large basement chamber. Rough-looking citizens filled the room, and smoke saturated the air. At several tables, patrons tossed dice and exchanged coins. The smell of beer and cheese wafted in the midst of the smoke, and nearly every patron had a pipe or a hookah near them. Scantily clad men and women moved around the tables, each holding trays of food. The bar ran along the far side of the room, and patrons lined its length. A staircase leading to the first floor started at the other end of the bar. Masai gave a quick glance over the crowd and then found the two people he was looking for. The thieves in question sat at the back of the tavern, on the far side opposite of Masai. The man with a goatee sat on a bench, with a nearly naked man in one arm and a nearly naked woman in the other. The thief with a large nose and the missing teeth had a single woman on his lap. Masai started moving through the crowd, and as he did, more and more patrons noticed him. The music fell away, and an unsettling quiet filled the bar. All eyes fell on Masai. The urge to puke nearly dominated his will. The eyes of the thieves caught Masai's attention, and they began whispering to one another the closer that he got to them. When Masai got up to their table, the man with the goatee tilted his head and squeezed his pair of lovers to him a little more tenderly.
What do you want? No one's died here. Go back to your little shrine.
He poured his magic into his staff, so it would be ready when he needed it.
You took something from a tomb today. You will give it to me.
The two men regarded one another. Confusion and panic raged in their eyes like wildfire. The man with the missing teeth turned to Masai. His slow, deliberate speech garbled the words as he spoke.
We were supposed to meet up with you tomorrow.
The other man kicked him.
What my associate is trying to say is that we're happy to see you. We finished the task earlier than expected. We have the item of which you speak. And I'm a little confused, though.
The man sat forward.
I thought your master intended on picking it up from my master.
Masai's heart beat faster, but he kept a calm facade.
If you have the item, you will give it to me. Now.
The man with the missing teeth gave his friend a wounded whimper.
Wait.
The man with the goatee ushered his lovers off of his lap, and then he stood up.
As we agreed, you'll give us 25,000 gold coins for the item. You give us the money, and then you'll get it.
Masai clenched his stomach tightly, and he stood up a little straighter. This was it. The point of no return. Well, actually, the point had been when he murdered the doorman. Now, Masai was so deep and thick into this that he had to see it through. He tightened the grip on his staff.
You will give me the item first, and then, if I'm satisfied, you'll get what you deserve.
The man with the goatee's eyes widened.
How dare you? You think you can just dictate to us how we're gonna do business? You're surrounded by Vextru, and by our rules, you'll show us the money now.
When Masai failed to produce any coin, the man with no teeth stood up, knocking his lady friend to the ground.
Hey, I bet he's not really with...
The man punched his friend in the stomach.
Ah, shut it. You talk too much. But I think you're right.
The man with the goatee pulled out a dagger from his belt pouch.
I don't know how you found out about what we did, but now you're gonna die. Get him!
Masai dipped into his mana pool and sent out a message to Anakanti. At the same time, 4 men at tables closest to Masai got to their feet, and they started to round the tables to get to him. Vicious sneers covered their faces. In a flash, Masai whipped the staff around and then struck each of them in the chest. At first, they laughed a little, as did most of the crowd. The pair of thieves who had stolen from Anakanti even pointed and mocked at him. One of the men Masai struck screamed out, and he started clutching the spot where Masai had hit. Another one did the same, and then another, and then the last. The interior of the sand rat whore fell silent, and they watched as each of the 4 men crumpled in on themselves. The vitality festered away, leaving only shriveled, blackened corpses. Someone screamed out, and the thieves got a little closer to the wall. The mockery they once boasted died, and now they only cowered. Other Vextru thugs rushed to meet Masai, so he twirled around to face them. Other people started screaming a short distance away. A table flipped over, a man cried out for the last time, and a flurry of movement began erupting. Joti leapt in and crashed his axe head on a man's face, and then kicked out with a savage front kick to free his weapon. Hikol slid forward, and his thinner blade zipped through the air with expert strikes. Thugs tried to block his weapon, but Hikol whirled it around their defenses and slashed apart their faces, necks, and torsos. When Vextru thugs tried to stab or slash at them, Joti and Hikol pivoted, dipped, and dove in for savage attacks of their own. A couple of greasy-looking fellows moved up to Masai, but he slapped them in the shins with quick jabs. Their limbs started blackening as soon as Masai touched them. Masai shifted closer to his brothers, all the while parrying, deflecting, and counterattacking.
What are you two doing here?
Masai slapped another thug in the side of the face. Joti slanted to the side as a sword nearly cleaved him, and yet his middle brother grinned from ear to ear. His axe rose up at an angle and caught the man in the chin. Meanwhile, Hikol spun around and chopped off a woman's head.
We were gambling. You cost me 50 golden coins, stranger. Good thing I don't know you, otherwise I'd make you pay me back.
Masai chuckled as he started fighting his way toward the pair of thieves who stood by the far wall. He swung his staff at other dregs who got too close, although by this point, they were keeping their distance away from him. Blackened corpses and oozing bodies littered the floor. 7 thugs armed with axes and swords of their own formed a line between Masai and the 2 objects of his obsession. Hikol and Joti stepped up beside him. A solemn, serious glare was on Hikol's face, but Joti grinned as wide as possible. It gave him a slightly maddening appearance, to be sure.
I'm sorry you had to get involved.
More Vextru circled around the 3 brothers, and so Masai placed his back to Hikol's and Joti's, forming a kind of triangle.
Don't worry about it. If we die, we'll all party hard and R.
Slowly, the thieves held their weapons out in front of them, and they cautiously approached, inch by inch. Masai's blood boiled, and the adrenaline was intoxicating.
We're not going to die.
Don't get me wrong, I love your confidence, but what makes you so sure?
Hikol twirled his blade in front of him.
Just you wait. Any minute.
Loud crashes echoed from above, followed by screams of anger and fright. Everyone, including Masai, Hikol, and Joti, looked up to the floor above them. Dozens of heavy feet shuffled across the floor. No one said anything, but everyone listened to the continued sounds of combat. After several moments, the upper floors became quiet. The thieves looked at each other, and then they looked at Masai. A black-robed man, Joyu to be exact, started marching down the stairwell, leading from the upper floor. Behind him, 9 black-cloaked individuals with bronze masks stepped in line. Another man with 9 additional figures came from the front entrance, where Masai had first come from. At first, no one said anything. More than a few people gave wide-eyed expressions, while others blinked and rubbed their faces in hopes to awaken from what they hoped was a nightmare. One of the Vextru thieves pointed to Joyu.
It's a damned Zur. They'll turn us all to zombies. Fight for your lives.
Was it his imagination, or did everyone start screaming? Dozens of Vextru rushed the black figures, perhaps hoping to fight their way to the only visible exit. Others tried running to the back wall. However, as soon as the people got too close to the bronze-masked figures, the bronze-masked figures attacked. They stepped forward and punched out at the Vextru. More often than not, when a person was struck, they died. Hikol and Joti chopped out and cut down the Vextru near them, or those who tried to get past them. Masai refrained from attacking at the moment, and he waved at Joyu. When Joyu caught his attention, he pointed at his brothers and then gave the hand signal that they were good. This was accomplished with a thumbs up, and Joyu returned to the gesture. Masai routed another person's face with a quick strike of his staff, and then he turned to Hikol and Joti.
Don't attack the people in the masks.
Hikol nodded as he sliced open another woman's stomach. Joti didn't nod, but Masai knew his brother had hurt him. Masai moved away from them, and he started fighting toward the pair of thieves again. When Masai got closer to them, the 2 women and the man who had been sitting on the thieves' laps stood in front of him defiantly.
Stand aside or I'll rot you.
After a moment, the lovers scattered. The man with the goatee screamed after them.
Cowards, you'll pay for your treachery.
The larger of the 2 screamed out and swung a war club at Masai. Had it struck him, it probably would have felled him. However, Masai ducked under it and then jabbed the staff into the man's elbow. The large man grunted and peered down to see his limb as it blackened.
Help! You magicked me!
Masai spun his staff around and clipped him right in the teeth. An instant later, his jaw rotted away.
Tell great Anakanti hello when you see her.
The large man's head crumpled in on itself like a rotting gourd As his large, bulky body hit the floor, Masai turned to the other thief.
All this for a trinket? Are you, sir, truly mad?
You were asking for 25,000 gold coins. You know it's more than a trinket.
Masai extended his hand.
Give it to me.
Will you spare me if I give it to you?
Give me the artifact. Then we can talk about mercy.
The man hesitated before he reached into a side bag. He pulled out a large golden ankh with small gemstones embedded into the loop of the ankh. It sparkled with the same degree of opulence that might have been found in a pharaoh's treasury.
And you'll let me go?
Give me the artifact!
As soon as the man tossed Masai the artifact, Masai placed it in his bag. The man started to move toward the exit, but Masai blocked him.
But you're supposed to let me go. I gave you the ankh.
How did you bypass the protection spell?
The man snarled a little, and then he crouched down a little.
I ain't telling you nothing. Let me go.
Masai struck him in the left leg.
We agreed to nothing. You tell me what I want to know, or I'll rot and preserve you until you go mad.
The man clutched his limb and fell to the ground. Tears welled in his eyes. Masai jabbed the staff against the man's throat. The man's voice came out in a wheeze.
All right, I'll tell you. Just make the pain stop.
Masai tapped the man's leg, and the rotting stopped.
Answer me! How did you bypass the spell?
The man swallowed hard as he tried to rise up off of the ground. Masai pressed his staff into the man's chest and forced him back down.
We received a tool from the one who sent us to the tombs. My friend and I, we were sent to test it and see if it really worked.
Who's your Anakanti contact?
I don't know. Only our boss knows. He gave us the tool to test.
Where's the tool? Do you have it with you?
The man's hesitation answered Masai's question. Masai slammed the end of his staff, magic-free, into the man's face.
You will give it to me!
The man reached into his side bag again and pulled out a bright white chisel.
This is what we used.
Masai reached down, took it, and placed it into his bag beside the artifact.
Is this the only one?
The man nodded vigorously.
Yes, yes!
Where can I find your boss? Where is the main Vextru base?
The man didn't say anything, and Masai stabbed him with the end of his staff. When the man still refused to speak, Masai stabbed him again, this time with a rot spell. Still, the man kept his lips tight.
Am I to understand you won't betray your Vextru any further?
No, I won't.
Then die.
Masai struck him in the chest and forced the rot spell to begin. He also hit the man's legs and arms, causing his limbs to begin to wither. Joyu, Hikol, and Joti came over to him as the man began screaming for the last time. Joyu gestured to Masai's brothers.
Are they friend or foe?
They're strangers, but they're not our enemy.
He tapped his side bag.
I have the means of how the thieves got into the tombs and the artifact. We're done here.
You two get out of here. We have important business to discuss.
Dark glares crossed Hikol's and Joti's faces, and yet they didn't respond. They simply gave Masai a brief, questioning glance before moving toward the exit. As soon as they were out of the main chamber of the Sand Rat Horror, Joyu said,
Good job. I guess you're off to return the artifact? How did the thieves get into the tombs?
Masai took out the chisel.
With this, I suppose. It feels like it's infused with death magic. I didn't know you could create objects to disrupt spells.
Joyu shrugged.
Yeah, it's not easy to create such an object, nor is it a commonly shared secret. Whoever made this must have some dark connections.
I had better get this back to where it belongs. What are you all going to do? The city guards might be coming in any moment.
We'll collect enough bodies to make it worth our while and be gone before you know it.
Joyu moved toward the exit.
I look forward to seeing you again, my friend. You're full of surprises.
By the time Masai made it to the exit, zombie soldiers were already picking up the blackened corpses and slain bodies. They placed one corpse on each shoulder and bore the weight as if it were nothing. There would still be many, many bodies left for people to discover. Masai emerged from the tavern, and he sent his thoughts to his beloved via the arcane tattoo.
I have the artifact. The thieves are dead. They used a magical chisel to bypass the spells.
Several seconds later, Anakanti responded.
A chisel? I will be interested to see it once you get back. By the way, our home is ready. I cannot wait for you to see it.
It's already prepared?
Masai grinned widely.
I shouldn't be surprised. You're a goddess after all.
Come home to me.
Just as he walked past an alley, a man jumped out in front of him. Instinctively, Masai charged his staff with death magic and struck out. Hikol leaned back in time to avoid being hit.
Whoa, it's me! Put that blasted magic away!
Hikol retreated, fear clearly dancing in his eyes. Joti stood beside him, and he wasn't smiling like before.
Keeping company with Zur, are we? What would Father say?
Masai arched an eyebrow at his brothers.
What would Father say if he knew you two were gamblers? I'm not a Zur. I had to get something back for my order, and they happened to be helping me. Are you two okay?
Hikol visually calmed down, and then he nodded.
We're fine. We used fake names and dressed in commoner clothes, so they don't know we're in the military. Are you okay?
I'm fine, I swear. I'm actually touched you two stayed behind to check up on me.
Joti clapped Masai on the shoulder.
Though we've had our differences, know that you're loved and supported.
Joti's eyes went unfocused for a moment.
Even if you did become Zur.
Really?
You're our little brother. We're family, and family supports one another. We should really get out of here before the city guard comes. Want to come back to our place?
Masai shook his head.
No thanks. I have to get this back to where it belongs.
He patted the side bag. Joti waved to him, and then he moved deeper into the alleyway.
Be safe, little brother.
And with that, Joti and Hikol fled the scene. Masai stood there alone, and yet he didn't feel alone at all. He had his siblings, his friends in the Zur, and most importantly, he had his goddess. The prized relic sat in his pouch, and nothing stood in his way from making his way to his new home.